What's going on, Sumolings? Chris here from AppSumo, and today I am very, very excited to be being here with Ben Dell, who is the founder of OnboardFlow. For those of you who don't know, OnboardFlow extensively monitors SaaS trials and lets you send targeted emails to increase conversions. This is not Ben's first time on AppSumo. He's also the founder of Help Shelf, Hey Summit, OnboardFlow. Any other products I'm missing?
Missing letter. You're missing
letter. Yeah, that was the first one, right?
It was, yeah. It feels like a long time ago, but only 3 years ago.
Man, it's we constantly talk about how much of a boss Ben is for just creating these incredible products. We help launch them on AppSumo. They do incredibly well with the Sumolings, and he just keeps doing it over and over again. So it's very impressive. We're going to be walking through OnboardFlow today. Before I turn it over to Ben, two quick things for y'all. One, if you have any questions, drop them in the Q&A box below the video. We're going to be going through those towards the end. And number two, you have to jump out early for anything. We will be sending out a replay later today, so you can catch everything then. But that is all I have from me. Let's get your questions in the Q&A box, and I'm going to turn it over to Ben to give you guys a walkthrough now.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Hey, look, it's great to be here. I wish I could say this is my first one, but I've done a couple of these. So let's see if I can get this one right. I'm sure I've waffled a bit in the past. So we're going to try and do a nice little walkthrough of the OnboardFlow platform. But let's kick off, first of all, with why you might care to use a platform like this in the first place. So first of all, it's worth noting that OnboardFlow predominantly is for SaaS-based businesses. But watch this space. We may evolve it into working with a few other sort of horizontals as well. So if you basically have a freemium sort of setup, or certainly a trial, or some sort of digital product that you offer, and you have some sort of membership or subscription sign up behind it, then watch this space. And so why does OnboardFlow exist? Well, you see, if you're offering trials for your SaaS product, most of us know how many are coming in, and most of us, if we're looking at the right numbers, know how many are coming out. So how many are converting and becoming paid customers, and we can cry into our, and for those that aren't converting. And so we know those numbers. Most of us know those numbers, the conversion rates, we know the churn rates, and we know how many new trials we're getting in at the beginning. But what I found in the last few years running a bunch of different SaaS is that in between, i.e. when your trial is actually trialing your product, it's so easy to kind of forget that part of our job as you know, whether we're in growth or product or marketing or running the SaaS, is to kind of understand to as great an extent as you can what your trial users are doing or not doing, as the case might be, within your product. Because if we can understand those things, then we can start to either change our communication, add extra features, remove features, but kind of just remove a lot of those barriers to, you know, at the end of the day, make it more likely that your trials will become happier trials, but trials that then eventually convert at the end of that. And that's what we're trying to do throughout. So let me share my screen and I will show you what it is that OnboardFlow does, because we have a slightly different take compared to a few similar-ish sort of products out there. And I'll explain some of those differences as we go through. So let me share the screen. I'm gonna get a bit of inception first of all. There we go. Cool. Can you see, Chris?
Yep. I'm gonna turn off my video for the time being, but you are good to go. This looks great.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. So you might be wondering, how is OnboardFlow different, or why might you use OnboardFlow when you might already be using ProfitWell or Baremetrics or some other analytic tool, sort of dashboard package for your SaaS. And it's for the reason I mentioned at the beginning, which is those tools are fantastic at giving you a broader, big picture view of kind of the financials behind your business. So things from MRR, ARR, churn rate, retention rate, upgrade rates, and all that sort of stuff. And that's brilliant. But often what they do when it comes to the trials is they'll really just tell you how many trials you've got. And our job really is to go a little bit beyond that and to give you more information about your trials, both from a subscription and conversion sort of standpoint, but also from a product adoption standpoint. And so there are basically, when you set up OnboardFlow, there are two data sources essentially that we encourage you to set up. You at least have to set up one of these. but it really helps if you set up both of these. And on the one side, we've got our payment provider. So depending on your business, you might already be using Stripe or PayPal or ChargeBee or Razorpay if you're out in India. There's a bunch of different payment providers out there, but essentially what they do is they manage your subscription. So they will handle the trial period and of course the billing aspect on that reoccurring basis. So you need to connect one of those first of all to your OnboardFlow account. And what that allows us to do is to keep in sync in a really deep way with accurate trial data. So that's the most important sort of cornerstone, if you will. We really need to know how many people are on a trial, what stage they're at, when did they start, when did they finish, how long does it last for? Really basic, but actually that's the as I say, the foundation to the whole of the rest of the data that we can help provide here. So that's really important and currently required, but we are soon in the next few weeks launching a version that will let you send in custom trial data if you either don't use one of our approved payment providers, or if you just do it all in-house and you sort of manage it internally and you sort of do it some other clever way. You will soon be able to send that trial data in manually. The second data source, perhaps the most important, is our inbuilt JavaScript tracker. So just like if you were integrating with Google Analytics or some other sort of analytics tool, you're going to be used to dropping in one of these scripts. And ours is no different in the sense that you drop it into your site, whether it's Google Tag Manager or just straight into your website. And what that allows us to do is to start understanding behavioral aspects of what your trials are actually doing when they're engaging with your product, your website, during that trial period. So there's a few things we do. We automatically track every single page view so that we can look at what are the key pages that are related to or influence conversions and a few other things like that. If you want to, you can also track custom events. So number of times they've clicked a particular button or watched a particular video or something that, well, whatever it might be within your product. And with all of those events being pushed into OnboardFlow, what you can then do is tell us which of those are key conversion events. So events that you think are really important to the trial eventually converting. So that might be adding their first project or creating their first task or whatever it might be. And there's a second thing that you can do through this tracker, and that's to tell us a few custom properties, if you will, about that trial user. And we'll do some clever things with that when you do. So for example, if you are running a task management tool, a project management tool, something like that, then you might want to tell the tracker how many projects that user has created. You might also want to tell it how many tasks they've created and maybe how many people they've invited. And that data combined with the pages they've viewed, the things that they've clicked and the engagement that they've had within the product, and combining that with the trial data that we get from the subscription provider, gives us this rich sort of data set that we can then do some clever things with. So that's the data and how it all gets pulled in there. Let's look at what we can actually do with that and how that might be quite useful for you. So we've got our dashboard here. Got them common things like recent activities. We can see who's signed up recently to a trial, who's converted, all those sorts of things. We can see our trial conversion rate over time and see how that's impacting. This is your 10,000 foot view. So this is the view that you want you and your team to be checking into every day so that they can make informed decisions about the next thing that they want to be focusing on. If you speak to any sort of growth or product guy out there, they'll tell you that the important thing that you should be doing is sort of focusing in and narrowing in on a particular problem or thing that you're trying to nudge, whether it's positively or negatively. So you might be trying to get someone to do more of something or less of something if you see them impacting conversions in a positive or negative way. And once you've identified what that thing is that you're trying to impact, it's all about then coming up with the experiments for yourself and working through those. And so this dashboard helps you narrow in, focus in on where that problem point might be or what the next thing for you to focus on might be. So let's look at a few examples here. So we've got our trial right here, as I mentioned. We've got this neat little funnel here that tells us this is kind of your high level health of your flow. So we can see in the last 30 days, how many trials have we had? In this example, 342. How many of those completed the onboarding? 191. So onboarding in this example might be reaching a particular page. In your case, it might be inviting your first team member. So you can decide what that onboarding completion event is, but once you've defined it, we'll help you understand how many of your trials are actually getting to that point, which is really, really important. And then the next thing in that funnel is how many of those trials have actually triggered one or more conversion events. So I mentioned before, a conversion event for you might be they've added their project, or they've invited a team member, or they've created their 10th task, or whatever it might be. As long as they've done one of those, we will log them in this section here, and then you can sort of see how many people have done that. And then from a retention standpoint, how many have actually come back after the first week. So before you even look in any sort of depth at any of the other stats that we look at, this gives you a really, really neat sort of barometer almost of, okay, we've got 342 coming in, 55% of those are completing onboarding. That's not a massively big issue at this stage, but you might want to come back to that. But it's not completely a leaky bucket at this stage. Then we look at the next one, 24% are actually triggering a conversion rate. Okay, so straight away as a team, you might go, this is something we need to look at. Why are only 25% triggering that conversion event, adding that first project or whatever that happens to be? So really, really good way of sort of narrowing in on what you're doing. We then got our product adoption. So these are things that are being pulled in for you by the tracker. This will be different depending on what you're pulling in on your tracker and what your product does. But for example, we can look at approving a campaign. So we've got a custom, in this demo, a custom event that's being triggered whenever someone approves a campaign, and we can see how that's changing over time. Remember, this is not just across all of your users. This is specifically for the last 30 days or however long your trial is. How many of those, or what percentage of those trials are actually doing that thing? Because if you're not getting your trials to do it during their trial period, you're never going to get them to do it, or much less likely to have them do it beyond their trial. So it's, again, narrowing down your focus a little bit. Those custom properties I mentioned as well are pretty cool. So where you can log the fact that that a user has added 5 projects or created 20 sites or whatever it might be, that data gets sent through to OnboardFlow, and there's 2 things we can do with that. One, we can look at it at this global level, so we can pull in all of that data across all of your trials. So imagine you've got 200 trials coming in, and the tracker is telling OnboardFlow how many sites each of those have created. We can then look at that on an aggregated level and help give you some insights into that. So for example, on average, looking at a 30-day average, in this demo, a typical trial user will create 1.09 sites. Now that basically tells us that they're adding at least 1 site. Now that's good. It means they're at least engaging. No one really is adding more than 1. If we hover over, it tells us that although 1.09 of trial users will add 1, for those that actually convert, that goes up ever so slightly to 1.29. So it's not a massive difference, but that tells us a little bit about the story, about the difference between a successful trial and a standard trial. If you're going to convert, you're a little bit more likely to add an extra site. So you might want to encourage people to add another site. But quite frankly, in this example, that's not a massive indicator. It's just a suggestion at this stage. Whereas here, when we look at the social profiles, how many they've connected, we can see that on average, 0.76 are being added. So we've got some work to do here to actually get more of our trials to add at least 1 social profile. So not more than half, but a certain percentage are not even adding their first social profile. So we might want to look at that. However, if we look over and hover over here, 2.86, so almost 3 social profiles are being added for those trials that convert. Now this is more statistically relevant. This is meaningful. This tells us that there is a correlation between the greater number of social profiles added and the likelihood that a trial will convert. And so that's a real positive affirmation, if you will, and suggestion. And so we might want to actually encourage more people to add extra social profiles. Remember, this is kind of based on this idea spoken about often back in the old days of Twitter when they were launching. They realized, I forget the exact number here, but it was something like when someone adds or follows, their 7th person, they are like 95% more likely to come back and remain sticky within the Twitter ecosystem. And kind of our job when we're running stats is to kind of work, what are those little indicators? What are those things that will, in theory, impact in a positive way the likelihood of our trials sticking around and hopefully converting? That was Siri talking there. Right, next bit. Our tracker does a really good job also of actually understanding where your trials are coming from. So unlike with Google Analytics, that will give you literally your whole world of visitors and say, hey, you've got 20,000 visitors and they've come from the United States, they've come from India, and 20% have come from Facebook. That is useful, but actually when you narrow down and look at just your trials, it's actually really, really powerful to know specifically for your trials alone, where did they come from? Because you might have 20,000 people coming into your website at the top of the funnel, but if only 10 of those are actually converting, it really would be useful to know where do those 10 come from so that you can try and get more of those people. And so this section here, and we'll be doing a lot more work in this area, helps you understand the marketing attribution behind the trials. And deeper than that, you can actually compare the trials that converted versus the trials that didn't convert. So we can look at the referring domains here. We've got Google taking up, what is that, 30%, whereas for those that converted, let's see if that changes, yeah, 62%. So twice as many, roughly, twice as many people from Google will convert than that won't. So that tells us a lot about which sources are actually, and which channels are actually working more effectively. And this is just a dashboard. So this is our 10,000 foot view to sort of really help us understand where can we dig in a little bit deeper. Chris, how are we doing for time?
I will go quick. No, you're doing good. Plenty of time.
Cool. Okay. So this is kind of like the big picture view, as I mentioned. There's another aspect to OnboardFlow, which is to kind of encourage us as teams to move away from the analytics, or less about moving away from it, but having us become less dependent on just the analytics dashboard. As great as they are, we need to start doing things with that data, and that's where the trials CRM comes into play. So even though we're SaaS and it's probably inbound sales, and if you have sales at all, you're not doing outreach most likely unless you're at the enterprise level. And yet there are times when it can be really, really helpful to actually think of your trials as real people. They are, after all, hopefully real people. And that's great for two reasons. One, just to sort of understand what they're doing, their behaviors and everything else. But when you start thinking of them in those individual sort of terms, there are then opportunities that you'll find to reach out to them, to collaborate internally, to share notes with your team, but ultimately to then communicate with them and send them one-to-one messages. Now, you can't do that today. You can't send them one-to-one messages. You can do some auto messages, which I'll show you in a minute. But in the next few weeks, you will be able to. So once you've connected your Gmail account, for example, you'll be able to send off these one-off sort of messages to your trials. So we can scroll through here and look at, okay, we've got these guys in this column. They're onboarding at the moment, so they're still active. We can see that this is how far through the trial they are. This is how many times they've come back to the site. So how engaged are they with the product? How many sessions have they had? This is the representation of the custom properties that have been sent in for that individual user. So how many sites have they created? How many projects have they created? Whatever it is that's unique to your particular business. So you can really at a glance visually see which ones are sort of likely to convert. We can see this person here. This is all anonymized, obviously. This is just demo data. But we can see this person here. They're almost through the end. They've added their card. This is a little tick here. So you can see this person hasn't added their billing details. This one has. This person has also added lots of sites, I think, lots of social profiles, lots of projects. This person is looking good. I would expect this person to convert. And what you'll be able to do soon is actually add a little reminder so that when they've when their trial has ended, it'll ping you a little Slack message or an email if they haven't converted, because you've marked them as someone that is likely to convert. And yet, if they haven't, you might want to know about that, because everything is telling us here that they should. Whereas we have others down here that are complete other end of the spectrum. They haven't added their card. They're still almost through the trial. They've got 1 day left and they've almost done nothing. In fact, they haven't done anything. This person is looking a little bit sorry for themselves. And yet, interestingly, they have had a lot of sessions. So this might tell us that they want to engage. They're trying hard. Maybe there's some blockers there. Maybe there's a bug in the system. Maybe there's something else going on there. So we might want to reach out to them manually and find out what's going on. So this is really, really powerful, this trial CRM, to try and think of, help us think of our trials as real people. They are, of course. We've then got our activity. So this is just a really quick snapshot into what is actually going on right now. What is the tracker actually reporting? What are our top page views, top custom events? What are our people doing right now? What pages are they on? So that we can kind of just understand a bit about what's going on. This is kind of interesting to know whether your track is working, first of all, but also if you've just launched a new feature or you've sent out a marketing message or mass email, you might want to watch this just to sort of see how are those people sort of filtering in? What are they doing right now? Are they clicking on the thing or engaging with the thing that you thought they might do? Next, 2 more things to go, Chris. We've got the trial cohort analysis. Looks boring, but actually super, super powerful. So every single trial that we log, we categorize into a cohort, so a weekly cohort. So we can see on this week, we had 54 trials. On the 20th of January, we had 55, etc., etc. And then what we help you understand is over time, so for each week that passes for that individual cohort, what is that conversion rate looking like? And so you're going to see some correlation with the length of your trial. So if you're offering a 30-day trial, probably you're not going to have that many converting until after that 30 days. But therein lies an opportunity. Maybe you want to nudge some people to, or incentivize them to actually convert before that. But it's interesting to see, what is that sort of lifespan of a trial conversion? Do they actually come back later on? And maybe there's an incentive for you as a team to re-engage with a trial from 5 weeks ago and say, look, you still haven't done it. Is there something else that we can do? So again, it gives you and your team an opportunity to create experiments. You can look at this and go, right, let's see if we can start impacting week 5 from any single cohort. We're going to start with this experiment this week, and let's monitor this over the next few weeks and see whether we can meaningfully impact things. And there's 3 different views to this. You've got your conversion rates, your retention rates. So retention is, do they actually come back? Now, 99% of them will come back in the first week, which means they just literally turned up for the first week. But how many of those actually come back to your site in the second week? I think if you look at this for your business, it will probably shock you that they don't come back as often as you think they might. But if they do, fantastic. If they don't, again, it gives you somewhere to look, something to sort of focus on. And then finally, we have sessions. So how many sessions do they actually have? This is kind of similar to the how often do they come back, but specifically how many unique sessions have you engaged with? And on average, how many sessions does a trial engage with? So how many times do they come back during that trial period? So for example, here we can see that on average, a trial will come back to the site 2.17 times. Now, depending on your business model, the product and everything else, that might be absolutely fine. It might be a set it and forget it type of SaaS. But if it's something that you would expect someone to be a bit more engaged in, you might look at that and think, before we fix anything else, let's just maybe look at that. Why are people not coming back more than twice on average? Let's send out that extra email to wave and say hello or give them a little high five. Let's give them a reason to come back. Maybe it's just sending a link to a blog post to let them know that, hey, there's something here you might want to look at. There's lots of different things you can do. Final thing, auto messages. So with all of that data that we've pulled in there are some really powerful triggers that we can set up for our email. So if you've used Intercom before, it's a little bit like that. You've got your sort of editor here. You can create sort of buttons and links and all that sort of stuff. But it's the powerful bit is the audience. So with Intercom, you can obviously trigger this based on custom properties that you send. So it's similar in that sense. But going back to what I said at the beginning, OnboardFlow is based on 2 key data sources that power the entire thing. The tracker with the custom properties and the custom events, the conversion events, and all those sorts of things, the behavioral sort of stuff. And then Stripe or your payment provider, which gives us the trial stuff. Are they ending soon? Are they in a trial? What status are they at? What is the trial plan name? All that sort of stuff. And we have access to all of that to create some really hyper focused or broad, depending on how you want to do it, triggers here. So for example, we can create filters based on subscription data. Are they in a trial? Have they added a payment method? When does the trial end? Has it already ended? Marketing sources. Now, this is something that we're seeing a lot of our users starting to really start experimenting with. So you might want to trigger an email when someone signed up for a trial, if they came from Google or if they came from a particular Facebook advert campaign, whatever it might be, have fun with that. But it really helps you create that sort of personalized messaging there. Custom properties. So these are some of the custom properties that this demo sends through here, unique to you, but you might want to, if you're running a project management tool, you might want to send an email if it's been 1 week and they haven't added a single project. On the flip side, you might want to send an email if it's been 1 week and they've added 10. You might want to say, hey, you are killing it. You've added 10 already. Let me jump, let me put some resources behind this. I'd like to jump on a call with you to see if we can help you become even more successful. So again, we're looking for ways to actually engage with people. Same with the key events. I don't think we've got any on this one. We do actually. So on conversion events, onboarding events, all that sort of stuff. And then that builds your audience list, and then that's sent out automatically based on those rules. So that's what it looks like today. We have actually already launched about 3 payment provider integrations, I think, in the last week alone: Chargebee, Razorpay, and Paddle, based on Sumoling feedback. And we're just getting started. So yeah, let us know what you think as you start using it. Feedback, we've got a feedback.onboardflow.com portal so that you can vote on feedback and other sorts of items. But yeah, we're looking to really push this out over the next few weeks and months. So look forward to you guys using it. Chris? Awesome. That wasn't too bad, I don't think, in terms of time.
No, that was perfect. Would you mind navigating over to the AppSumo page and kind of going over what's included in each of the tiers? Why somebody would want one license versus multiple?
Yeah, cool. Good question. Okay, so so it's first worth noting that I'm a bit of a veteran, as you may have heard, to these AppSumo deals, and what is quite common, but also something I like to do as well, is always bring you guys in at a really meaningful stage. So not at the cheapest, but at the middle tier. I think that it's always felt like a good sort of fit. It's more than enough for most. Very few people ever need anywhere near that sort of quota, but a lot of you I know like to buy in and future-proof, and so we've got some options there as well. And so that's the same sort of thing here. So your plan is essentially pegged to the growth plan. If we change and add things to that in the future, you'll of course get those sort of benefits as well. But with the stacking, you can effectively get a little bit closer, if not, in fact, better, I think, in many cases, than the expansion plan, which is our biggest plan. So let's look at what some of those look like. I need to be reminded. Let's have a look. Right, so for the first code, as I say, you're basically getting the growth plan. I think it is literally the same. Let's just double, it is exactly the same. So you are literally coming in on the growth plan for 1 code. For the second code, you then double your active trials, you double your sites, and you also add an extra 6 months onto your data history. Bear in mind that the active trials is based per site. Now, I've never done this before, so I hope I don't live to regret this, but usually we set these quotas at the account level, so they have to be shared across the sites, whereas here you can actually have them per site. So in effect, if you had 2 sites, 2 brands, 2 properties, then you could actually have capacity for 2,000 trials here. And then it goes up. You can stack all the way up to 10, and effectively you're adding an extra 500 onto the trials, an extra site, and I think an extra half a year on the data, up to a maximum of 5.5 years. So there's the 10 stacker there, if you will.
Awesome, looks good. Okay, one of the questions is there a public roadmap, or if not, what are the things that you're most excited about that you have coming up for OnboardFlow?
Okay, so we do have a feedback roadmap sort of page. So feedback.onboardflow.com. When you're in our platform, you can also click, you might recognize this help shelf here, but click the feedback button there and that'll take you to the same place. This is both suggestion, voting, but also roadmap as well. So you can see some of the things that we're working on next. The most exciting things for me fall into 3 categories. 1, just getting more payment providers set up. As I said, we've already launched 3 in the last week alone. So we've got a few more lined up. Secondly, for those that don't want to use a payment provider or just use one of our existing payment providers in a different way, and that different way being, and this is quite common, but where you have your trial start, but you don't actually create your customer or subscription record in the payment provider until they've actually converted. And that kind of mucks up everything that we currently do, because we sync up with your payment provider in order to get that data. And if you're not creating that record, that kind of creates a problem and defeats the purpose. And so this next update will help you solve that. And so you'll be able to send in custom trial data, both through the tracker and also through an API, so that you can tell us in your own way, whether it's a mobile app or whether it's just as I say, you want to just send the trial data in your own way. You can tell us what trial they're on and what the subscription plan is and all that sort of stuff, irrespective of what payment provider you use. So that should broaden it out to pretty much everyone. And the third one, which is worth noting, but particularly exciting, is freemium. So we've had a lot of people tell us that you may or may not offer free trials, so 14-day, 13-day trial that then turns into a paid plan. But a lot of you also offer freemium as well. And actually, We launched Freemium as well just 2 days ago, but don't worry, your deal here is infinitely better than that. So don't, if anyone's thinking jump off and get the free plan, I promise you get 25 active trials, whereas at the starting point you get 500 here. So don't worry, we're looking after you. But ironically, we've just launched our freemium plan, and then we've realized that we actually have no current way to actually monitor our own freemium signups through our own platform, which is a bit of an undersight. But also, we've heard a lot of you guys speaking with us over the last week that you also offer freemium sort of subscriptions as well. And so we're looking to fully support that over the coming weeks. Now, when we do, just to forewarn, it will almost certainly be an add-on that we'll have to think about and communicate with you, for the simple reason that trials have a finite lifespan. They will live in the system from a statistical standpoint for 14, 30 days, 60 days, whatever your lifespan is. Whereas free, they could be there indefinitely. So if you're bringing in 5,000 free trial or freemium users, every month, that's just stacking on top of all of the previous ones as well. So I wish we could offer the same plan for that, but we're almost certainly going to have to come up with a different plan. But whatever we do, we'll obviously make sure that anyone coming in through AppSumo gets the very best deal. And just as an example, we did something similar for Hey Summit. We literally offered our $249 a month plan for just $10 a month. So don't worry, we're not afraid of doing stupidly brilliant deals, but we will have to do something along those lines to make it, well, we want to be in business. We don't want to kill ourselves too early on.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks for going through that. Tariq is asking, can your tool be used for customer success purposes, such as user engagement, and not so much trial conversions? We don't have free trials, only paid. And I know you teased this a bit earlier. There might be some use cases. So if you want to touch on that a bit more.
Yeah, I think I might have responded to a question that this person asked on the deal page. And I think you're right. When we launched the API and the ability to send that trial data, in inverted quotes, in the tracker, pretty much it's down to you to then use it in the way that you see fit. So in a sense, you probably could use it in the way that you're describing there. In that scenario, as long as you have a website that you can install this tracker onto, and as long as you tell us what plan they're on, whether it's whatever you want to call that, whether it's paid, free, trial, or whatever, then in theory you can track them. The only footnote that I would attach to that is that if they are on a potentially indefinite plan, like a free plan or straight to paid, then it would slot into that freemium conversation I was just having a minute ago, where we almost certainly will have to think about how we structure that from an add-on standpoint, just so that we can, we don't become overloaded with huge amounts of data that we can't sort of serve. But with that aside, yeah, I think we should be able to service that need for you.
Awesome. All right. Can you please go through those extra features when you stack at least 3 codes? For example, the custom cohorts. What does that look like? What is a custom cohort? And then any of the other features that are included in that 3+.
So there are a couple of things noted on this in terms of features that don't exist yet. But don't worry, we work quickly. So for example,
yes,
custom cohorts,
you build survey. Companies overnight.
yeah, for my sins. So don't worry. But these 4 here essentially don't exist yet, but do not worry, they are coming soon, and you'll get early access to them as soon as they do. Custom cohorts is basically already there. We're just going to be broadening it out a little bit. So for example, custom cohorts are basically where you define. Currently, this exists in the messaging piece, as I showed you before, where you define your audience, and a cohort can be based on literally anything. We looked at the breadth of data and filters that you have available to you. You can do ands, ors, you can stack them, you can combine that filter set and whatever way you want. So the custom cohorts will be this, but then you applying a name to it and then being able to use that custom cohort in other areas. So either to trigger in-app messages, which again is coming very, very soon, or perhaps more pertinent, in the trials CRM. So at the moment, these columns are fixed. We've got onboarding, as in they're in a trial, expired, meaning they didn't convert, and converted, meaning they did convert. Once the cohorts are in place, or the custom cohorts, you'll then be able to peg a cohort to a particular column. So you can literally, one of your teams might want to have a column specifically for people who have added more than 10 projects, and another column for those that have added fewer than 10 projects, so that you can really narrow in on who to focus on next.
That's awesome. Great. Well, that is the end of the questions we have here. Ben, thank you so much for taking the time. One thing I do want to throw out to folks who are on the webinar or watching the replay, this will apply to you guys as well. If you guys end up purchasing OnboardFlow and love it, or want to leave a review of any kind, feel free to drop that in. And we're going to be going through, let's say on Friday, we'll be picking one of those reviews and giving that person a $25 in AppSumo credits. So you don't have to leave a 5-taco review. If you think it warrants it, please do that. Just leave an honest review and just mention the webinar in it, so we know that you came from the webinar. And we're going to be picking a winner on Friday. So let's, if you get it, leave a review. Let us know what you think of OnboardFlow. Mention the webinar, and we'll pick one person to get $25 in AppSumo credits. If you have any questions, drop those.
Chris, I'm going to add to that. Can I add to that? Leave the word webinar. I think that's important because I love reviews as well. Genuinely, the reviews really immensely help people discover this product, and you know, we want to get it in front of as many people as possible to take advantage of this deal. So I will do a similar thing. I'll pick someone at random on Friday as well, or maybe it could be the same. No, I'll do someone different so that we've got twice as much of a chance. And I'll give you 2 extra codes on top of however many you've already purchased, whether it's 0 or 5. But yeah, massive thank you for those that have already commented. Been much appreciated.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that. So to summarize the offer, leave a review, mention the webinar, and one person will get $25 in AppSumo credits. Another person will get 2 extra codes for OnboardFlow. And that will be coming from Ben, credits coming from us, just to say thank you guys. Again, it really does help people find these tools who can use them. I was saying to Ben before this webinar that when we were doing some SaaS stuff with AppSumo, it would have been super helpful to have a tool like this. So I think you guys could really benefit from it. Again, it's all backed by the AppSumo 60-day guarantee. So get as many codes as you like, play around with it, see what kind of results you can drive, and let us know how that works out for you. But that is all. Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to hop on this morning. Really appreciate it. You have any last things you'd like to mention?
No, just thanks everyone who's provided feedback and questions and quizzed me on various things. I've met a lot of really, really tuned in people with some great questions. So keep them coming.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Again, everybody, we'll be picking a winner for these on Friday, which is going to be the March 6th. So get them in by the 5th. That's when we'll be getting the winners. All right. Thank you so much, Ben. Appreciate it.
Cheers, guys.
Talk soon.
Cheers. Take care. Bye.
Bye.